Welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Welcome back, everyone. Great to have you here today. Excited to get right into the show, which is going to be going over the most powerful anti-inflammatory foods in the world. We're not going to go over the random exotic ones, but we're actually going to go over everyday foods that you can easily purchase at your local grocery food store that's going to help to balance some of the inflammatory foods that you might be eating. So we know that none of us are perfect, right? We're going to have some foods that aren't necessarily anti-inflammatory. And when we do, the nice thing is, and I used to work with Monica Rangel many years ago, we know that there's an inflammatory factor to foods. And when we add all these foods up, at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we're at a net anti-inflammatory rating for our foods. Now, the nice thing is that you don't need to calculate every food by food, because remember, that's not going to be, you're not going to be able to consistently keep that up in your life. But what you can think about what foods and food groups are anti-inflammatory, and are the foods that you are eating on that list, yes or no? So now when you go to eat a food that is not on the anti-inflammatory list, here's what you can do. You can then mix it with certain foods at that sitting that are anti-inflammatory. This is a real world way of eating that's going to get you real results. That's the nice thing. And then, of course, the more anti-inflammatory foods that you can eat, well, that we've seen, again, when we look at the actual research, and I'll bring it all together for you, far less chance for heart disease, high blood pressure, cancer, type 2 diabetes, all-cause mortality is going to go down. Now, can I guarantee that for you? Is this a cure? Is this a medical diagnosis? Is this a treatment plan? No. This is how we keep our body healthy and we rebalance it at a deeper underlying root cause. So is food the only way that you're able to get well? No, it's typically not, right? But it's part of one of the great ways that we need to look at in order to keep our body healthy for life, or to be able to work on rebalancing the underlying root causes of our weight gain or our health issues or those rapid aging issues. Remember, we will all age, at least for right now. We're all going to age until there might be some miracle serum out there that reverses the aging process. Probably not within our lifetime, but we can definitely slow the aging process. And that's what a lot of this diet has to do as well. You need to be at a net negative at the end of the day for your inflammatory based rating, right? So you need to eat more anti-inflammatory based foods. So let's go over that. Now, I also want to give you a why I'm doing this show. So last week in episode 1916, I would love you to listen to that show as well. The worst inflammatory foods everyone should avoid. Is this a double negative? Well, maybe not. But I don't ever want to do a show that's always about the negative, right? I always want to give you what then is the answer. So I gave you the foods to stay away from. But again, I like to keep the shows around 20, 22 minutes. Okay, I do my best. Sometimes I go a little over. I can be a little long-winded, but I do my best to keep it concise. And I want to give you, by the end of the show, the action plan as well. So here's the thing. Today, just 1 week later, now I'm giving you those anti-inflammatory based foods. It's going to be super simple. You're going to get a list. Head on over to stephencabral.com/1923 for all those details. Okay. So let's get right into it. Most powerful anti-inflammatory foods. Let's start right away with pretty much the most powerful ones for detoxification, for good gut health, and for overall balancing the inflammatory nature of the body, especially as we begin to age. Because as we begin to age, we move more towards an inflamed-based state. Well, and you can obviously see that as disease begins to progress as we get older, unless we are taking those steps using the de-stress protocol: diet, exercise, stress reduction, toxin removal, rest, emotional balance, scientifically backed supplements, and a success mindset. Okay, so the diet part of that is this. most powerful, absolutely, no doubt about it, most powerful cruciferous-based vegetables. What are cruciferous vegetables? Well, they're things like broccoli and cabbage and cauliflower and kale and Brussels sprouts. And you might say, I don't like any of those things. Well, I always tell my daughters this as well. Food does not have to tickle your taste buds and absolutely delight you with every mouthful. That's not necessarily what food was meant to be done. Now, do I have one of those meals once or twice a week? I absolutely do. And just 2 nights ago, I was out with a group of people. Was, again, one of my first dinners in well over a year. And it was just so nice to be able to just connect with other people. And we had a great meal together. And I had some of those foods which tickled my taste buds, right, that I enjoyed, that were, as they call it, mouth pleasure. And others, though, I tried to balance that. So even at the same meal, I was eating some bok choy. I got some salad. I got different things like that. But let's look at it this way. Bok choy would fall into this category. You want to get foods that are going to work on phase 2 liver detox on a daily basis, that they're going to be good gut prebiotics for when you balance your gut microbiome. And if you need to balance it, you can look at the CBO protocol, you can look at lab testing. Remember, all of that can be done, right? And then you can start to eat these foods. Cauliflower. Lately, I've been eating it as riced cauliflower. And if you don't know what that is, you know what? I'm going to do a Friday review on that. So this Friday, coming up on episode 1925, I'm going to do a riced cauliflower review because I've been using that quite a bit lately, and it's absolutely fantastic. So I'm going to be talking about that because typically, cauliflower is not one of people's favorites. But again, it goes back to, it doesn't have to be your favorite, okay? Just try to have a cup of it at lunch and a cup of it at dinner. You can have other vegetables as well. And how I have my broccoli, typically, I have that every day at lunch, Monday through Friday. And all I do, I just bake it. That's it. And then I add some olive oil and a little bit of sea salt and enjoy. That's it. As I know that I'm doing something healthy for my body. All right. So cruciferous vegetables are first, and then brightly colored vegetables second as anti-inflammatory. Now, don't think of just like butter lettuce and romaine lettuce. Those are fine. Those are fine, okay? But the power, when we're thinking about anti-inflammatory, we want to think about bright colors. What would some of these bright colors be? Peppers could be one of them. Yellow peppers, red peppers, not a big fan of green peppers. They're basically unripened, not as easy to digest, not as fun for the body. But think of brightly colored, okay? There are many others as well, but what I want to do is start to break this into categories, okay? So we're thinking about cruciferous vegetables first, predominantly all green, okay? The one exception to that is, well, there's 2 exceptions. There's cabbage. You can get purple cabbage, you can get white cabbage. And then there's cauliflower. Now, cauliflower, interesting enough, I believe it's called Romanesco. That might be completely off. But there's cauliflower actually in the shape of like an acorn. And it's fantastic to eat. I highly recommend it. We buy the purple variety all the time. There's also green, and then you can get white. Those are at least the kinds we've had. There are probably other color. Actually, there's yellow as well. So there's other colors besides just your white cauliflower. Now I'm going to tell you how to make another cauliflower recipe in just a moment when we get to some of our spices. Okay, so we've got cruciferous vegetables, powerful anti-inflammatories. We've got a regular brightly colored fruits and vegetables. Think of any brightly colored, any brightly colored vegetable that you would like, okay? Spinach, yes, we know the greens. Those are all great, no doubt about it. But what are some other ones that you might be able to eat? Peppers come to mind as one in particular, but again, there are many others as well, such as yellow beets or rainbow colored beets, red beets, etc. Okay, so think about your other vegetables. Now, the next one is fruit. And before some people get a little, up in arms about the sugar in fruit, we have to understand is that when we talk about sugar, we're not talking about fruit. There's a huge difference. And then a lot of people want to point to like a lot of exotic fruit, okay? We don't need to do that. We can eat brightly colored berries, okay? So let's go over a simple list of low glycemic, brightly colored fruit. And it's very easy. So I want to make sure that these are actionable for you. And when you go grocery food shopping, you don't need to bring a list and you don't need to necessarily memorize a whole lot. Cruciferous vegetables, sure, let's memorize that list, okay? Regular vegetables, go through your aisle, pick out what your heart desires, right? Choose some radishes and some beets and some carrots and whatever you want, brightly colored, okay? Now, and try to eat a rainbow, as we're talking about as well. Always eat the rainbow, right? And so now what we're talking about for fruit, if it ends in berry, it's most likely going to be low glycemic and great. We have blueberries. We have raspberries. We have blackberries. We have strawberries. Make sure they are organic. That is the issue with berries, is that you cannot wash off that pesticide. It seeps into the skin and you are eating pesticide, which is bug spray. So if you wouldn't spray bug spray directly into your mouth, which I hope that you wouldn't, I don't want you to eat bug spray, okay? So the only fruit that's actually edible, that's conventional based, would be something where you can peel the skin off and you don't consume the skin. And again, you can always go back to my shows on the Clean 15 and Dirty Dozen. And you know what? Let me see if I can find, or let me see for next week if I can do a Clean 15 and Dirty Dozen if the 2020 list is available. All right, 2021, I apologize. Okay, so what else besides things that end in berry, like goji berry? What else? Acai berries are great, right? So any berry is good. Now, some other brightly colored ones. One of my daughter's favorite is pitaya, also called dragon fruit. I've done a show on that. I won't go through that too much in depth, but you can go to stevencabral.com/podcast, and you can always just type in pitaya, which is P-A-T-A-Y-A. We like the pink. So my daughters, especially my youngest daughter, will often get a pink smoothie bowl that my wife will make. And it's honestly simple. You just add frozen banana and you add a packet of the frozen pitaya, which is called dragon fruit. And we do the pink. You blend it up and it makes a smoothie bowl. We call it ice cream. That's what my daughters use for ice cream. And then you can add anything else that you want to it. You can add some of the vanilla DNS, and literally whatever you would like to that. And then typically you only need a tiny amount of nut milk to make that smoothie bowl. Again, kids love it, and it's great, brightly colored, okay? Another great one, though, is cherries. So a lot of people forget about cherries. Even though it doesn't end in berry, pretty close, right? Take off that CH, add a B, and you've got your berry. So berries are always going to be great. Low glycemic cherries are fantastic as well. And one more that I would just put in there would be kiwis would be really low glycemic as well. There are many more fruit. I've done shows on low glycemic, but those are simple to get started, okay? So now we have cruciferous vegetables, and then we have our low glycemic fruit. All right, now we want to look at our healthy fats, and we want to look at this from 3 different varieties, okay? Healthy fats, I've talked about this many, many times, but I'm going to keep this super simple today. We're going to look at olives and olive oil, and we're also going to look at avocados and some avocado oil. Those are going to be our best fats. You can make arguments for all different types of fat, how much fat you should eat, how little fat you should eat. But if you want the absolute healthiest type of fat, which doesn't go back and forth between, is this polyunsaturated, good or bad? Well, there's good and bad to both sides. Saturated fat, good and bad to both sides, right? Monounsaturated fat, pretty much solid, good across the board, right? So I always say err on the side of caution. As a doctor and health practitioner, your first goal is do no harm. Choose your avocados and olive oil, all right? So that's simple for our fats right there. Now, next up, as anti-inflammatories, remember, we're only talking about anti-inflammatories here. We have nuts. Well, if we use the same rule of really looking for monounsaturated, what are some great monounsaturated high omega-3 nuts? Macadamia nuts, that's a great one, right? A lot of monounsaturated right there. What else? Walnuts. Walnuts are another great choice, okay? So you can do that. Of course, you could do some almonds. You could do others as well. There's no doubt about it. I'm not saying like you can't have some Brazil nuts or pecans or something like that. But what you want to say is, okay, well, what are the best ones that I could eat? And I think in general, a variety is really nice. So like some hemp seeds or hemp hearts, some flax seeds or, crushed granulated flax, some macadamia nuts, some walnuts. All of that can be really great. And again, you don't have to go big on nuts either. I don't consume a lot of nuts. again, everybody has their own genetics, and you find eventually what works best for you. And just because of the gut issues that I had for many years, nuts don't seem to be, it's kind of one of the things that I just don't do a lot of, okay? But a little bit of nut milk here and there that I talked about on yesterday's show, no problem with my body. A little bit of nuts, again, like I said, not an issue. I just don't go overboard with it. I choose my fruits and vegetables for more of those brightly colored. And then we have one more category of healthy fats, and that is fish. So if you're someone that chooses to eat fish, you can get really high quality, good anti-inflammatory fish that are loaded with omega-3s like trout and mackerel and sardines and anchovies and wild salmon, and all of those, and herring even, are great anti-inflammatory based fish. So those are things too that are going to be loaded as an anti-inflammatory high in omega-3s. Okay. I want to go over now a couple spices that you can add to your food. So one way that I told you about cooking cauliflower, a great way to do it is with Ayurvedic-based spices. One of the best ways is either with a curry-based allspice or individual curry-based spices, especially turmeric. So you get your cardamom, you can put others in there as well. Like if you wanted to add fenugreek, you can add others like that. But turmeric, get that in there, maybe even a little bit of ginger as well. These are powerful anti-inflammatories. Again, you add that turmeric in there as a spice, can make a really nice dish, especially with that cauliflower. One of my favorite ways to make that. You can add a little spice to it as well. So you can always add some peppers in there. That's not necessarily going to be as bad. You want to be careful that we don't overdo that part, especially if it's more oil-based, which can be a little bit more acidic for sure. So, but if we stick with our turmeric and our ginger. And if you want to think about too, other spices that you could add, I've talked about this before, the best spices to add to your coffee. I'm going to link that show up because there's a bunch. But if you go to stevencabral.com/1923, I'll link those up today, the podcast on spices to add to your coffee. But one of them, cinnamon. Cinnamon is a great one to add. And cinnamon is a powerful anti-inflammatory that can also be good for blood sugar as well. So a nice way to start the day. If you like cinnamon, great thing to add to the coffee. You can even just use a little hand aerator to spin that in there if you'd like as well. All right, green tea. So if you're not a coffee drinker, certainly you can have some green tea. Powerful anti-inflammatory, but it really goes for most herbal teas. So hibiscus, well, brightly colored, right? Ginger, powerful spice right there. So most herbal teas are going to be fine. Green tea is okay. Coffee, it is powerful as an antioxidant, but as an anti-inflammatory, mixed reviews, okay? Powerful antioxidant as an anti-inflammatory, not really loaded one way or the other with omega-6s or omega-3s. You just want more of an organic blend. You don't want a dark roasted one that's essentially burnt, which is going to have more acrylamides. That's going to be more inflammatory. So try to err more towards the light roast or the medium. Definitely go organic. My favorite coffees are at stevencabral.com/resources. I link my favorite coffee brands there as well. So you can check that out. And then typically, if we reach out to the company and they give you a coupon code, it's nice that we get to just pass those things along to you as well, especially the same ones that I use. Okay. Now, two more. People ask me all the time, what about chocolate? Can I eat chocolate? Can I eat chocolate? You have to understand is that chocolate's an odd one. Chocolate is a very powerful anti-inflammatory, essentially a spice. Like it's a bean, but we don't eat it as a bean. We roast it, we cook it, we can use it as powder. We can use it as in part of our baking, or we could actually eat the chocolate itself. So chocolate is a very, very powerful anti-inflammatory as well. So I'm not going to say that at all. And how do you know? So like, this is the thing. For some people, chocolate actually does lead more towards acne. And I can do that on a separate show of how it actually affects a couple different bacteria inside the body, if it's overgrown, or if you're just more sensitive to chocolate in general. But if you're not, chocolate can be a perfectly acceptable food. Dark chocolate has more powerful anti-inflammatory effect. And again, it can be a nice little treat that you enjoy. So if it's not affecting you in terms of joint pain or skin rashes or headaches or brain fog or migraines or what was the other one that I spoke about as well, or acne, then it could be just, again, like I said, a fun little treat that you give yourself maybe after dinner, or maybe that you're doing post-workout or something like that as well. And we talk about that in our practice all the time. And we have our chocolate superfood bars that people love. Again, you just want the small serving. You don't want to eat a bar of chocolate, right? A couple squares of chocolate. Well, that's a bit different than a bar of chocolate, right? And then the last one I always get asked about, well, what about alcohol? What about wine? I can't use this as a powerful anti-inflammatory. Here's why. It actually creates inflammation. Now, there's exception. I shouldn't say there's no exceptions to that, okay? Alcohol is a poison that we choose to consume. And I'm not saying that I'm against that, nor am I saying that I never drink alcohol, because I do sometimes. Just not a lot. But we have to understand is that if our body didn't detoxify that, well, that would be a bad thing. That would kill us, right? So here's the thing. Alcohol, that's one of the big things you have to say, okay, we're going to really do this in moderation. 1, maybe 2 drinks, right? We're not going to go overboard. Now, with red wine and a few of the others like bourbon, you can actually get some benefits. Like you can get some real antioxidant-based benefits. However, it's not an anti-inflammatory. And so I just want to clarify that. It's almost like coffee. Like coffee, there's a lot of benefit to that. And you can have decaf if you don't want to do caffeine and still get a lot of those benefits as long as it's organic Swiss water processed for the decaf. But with alcohol, you still have to detoxify it. So I can't put alcohol in the health-based category, okay? I'm not totally against it, okay? I've talked about that on many other shows. But in terms of a health food, I can't add it to the list, okay? Now, a lot of people consider it a health food because it helps people relax and calm their central nervous system. And I get it. But if you could relax your central nervous system in another way, then that would be even better. So let's go back over our hierarchy here. We talked about cruciferous vegetables, regular brightly colored vegetables. We've got our brightly colored, low glycemic fruit. We have our healthy fats, and we included with that olives and our avocados for our vegetable-based fats. We have our nuts and seeds, okay, for our healthy fats with nuts and seeds. We've got our healthy fats from animal-based products that are anti-inflammatory, which means they're higher in omega-3s, and that would be mainly our fish, our sardines, our anchovies, our mackerel, our trout, which is wild caught, our wild salmon, our sardines, which I probably already mentioned, a herring, and just a couple others, okay? So very powerful anti-inflammatories there. We talked about our anti-inflammatory spices, which would be like the turmeric and the cinnamon, and even some of those anti-inflammatory teas like green tea and hibiscus and passion flower and all of those. We talked about coffee as being more neutral than anything else and be more of a powerful antioxidant. And that was it. And talking about alcohol is not part of it. So when we look at this, because again, I always like to bring things back to what are we really talking about? These are the most powerful anti-inflammatory foods in the world that can't be disputed. That's what the science shows. These are the most anti-inflammatory, right? It doesn't mean that you can't eat some inflammatory foods. You can, but try to get more of these in. Now, if I talk to you about brightly colored fruits and vegetables, some healthy fish, some healthy avocados and olives, some healthy nuts and seeds, a little bit of chocolate maybe, some spices, and maybe a little bit of coffee. And then every once in a while, when you're hanging out with friends and family and having a great time, having a glass of wine or your favorite bourbon, whatever it might be, what diet does that sound like? Right? So if we're looking at independent research and we're independent thinkers, which means we don't care who's right, we don't have any dog in the race, as they say. We're just looking to say, hey, what's probably the safest, best diet for the majority of people? Well, this sounds a whole lot like the Foundation of All Diets podcast that I did, right? Yes, it does. And what is that based on? That is based on the Mediterranean-based diet. So if you want more information on exactly how that's set up, we will link up some of those shows today at stephencabral.com/1923. And I just want to reiterate, remember always, I want to bring you the unbiased research. You get to make the decisions that you feel are best from there for your friends, for your family, for your loved ones, whoever you want to share this information with. But for me, again, it's always like, how can I err on the side of caution? How can I do no harm? And how can I live a normal life, eat some other foods, but also try to include the best anti-inflammatory ones in the world? This is absolutely it. I hope that it's helpful for you. Again, always feel free to let me know how I can answer additional or go over additional topics in the future. And of course, if this was helpful, please do always feel free to share these shows with anyone you believe they could serve. Take care. Thank you so much for just tuning into the show. And as a valued listener, before you go, I want to make sure you are one of the first to know of what is going on right now over at equa.life. We are giving away one of our most popular products for reducing stress, calming the central nervous system, maintaining healthy hair, skin, and nails, changing carbohydrates into usable fuel and energy, and also improving the overall absorption of your B vitamins. B vitamins are absolutely needed for so many of the different functions in your body that go on with the brain, the nervous system, and the regeneration of our cells of our body. So what we do is we make sure, yes, that we provide that B complex in our daily nutritional support. But for many people who need a boost in energy or need to really fight that aging-based process or calm the stress and central nervous system, this is absolutely the product for them. It's also really easy to use. You can use your daily nutritional support shake in the morning, and you can take one activated B complex at lunch and another at dinner, and you are done for all day energy. This is also a full B complex, which means it includes thiamine and riboflavin and niacin and vitamin B6, folate, B12, biotin, pantothenic acid, choline, which is so great for the brain, and then it has all of the methyl donors and inositol as well. So again, this is a full B complex with all of the methylated B vitamins, of course, because that is exactly what the human body looks like, and that is what it's able to absorb. So right now we are giving away about 500 bottles. So we're giving away a lot of these, but they will go fast. And so these are on all orders over $99 while supplies last over at equa.life. This is a $30 value. So head on over, grab your free bottle while supplies last at equi.life. Take care, everyone.